Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are rolling along with a really small Thursday night slate in between these big Wednesday, Friday night slates here. Only a few games on the slate. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. You can check out the other couple videos we have for you today, including that player props one that we love to bring you each and every weekday. Today we are looking at the Boston Celtics taking on the Knicks in MSG tonight. Both teams definitely struggling a lot more than probably expected this year. So we'll take a look at some of the value you can find in this one. Some guys out for the Knicks especially. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, this opened around a pick'em line. Now the Celtics are -1.5 some spots. You can still get them -1 some spots. I mean, the public not really trusting either team at this point. Total has been dropping from 210 to 207, now up to 208 some spots. So that's a pretty low total, as you would expect from two struggling offenses. Three other games tonight. The only other one with a single-digit spread is the Warriors on the second leg of a back-to-back. They're -3 at the Pelicans with a low total there of 213. We're going to break that one down in a separate episode. At this point, we're not 100% sure if everyone's going to play on 0 days rest for Golden State, but we will do our best to project. And then we got Pistons +12.5 at Memphis. Bay and company really let us down last night, getting smashed by the Hornets. Welcome back to being 30th in the NBA, Detroit. And then the Clippers also struggling. They're +11 at the Suns there. So looking at Celtics at Knicks here, rivalry game. The home team has actually won 4 straight in this rivalry, but I think that trend ends tonight. I think that the Knicks are too shorthanded in the backcourt with both Derrick Rose and Kemba Walker ruled out. Their offense has just been putrid without Derrick Rose. Dead last in assist rate, 29th in points per game, dead last in pace, 29th in three-point percentage. Their scoring drops from 106 to 101 without D Rose. Their three-point percentage drops 3%. And then their defense has been good, according to the rating over the last 6 games, but you got to delve into a little bit of who they played here. They played the Hawks backups. They played the Wolves backups, shorthanded Pacers team, the Thunder. They just did not get a lot of quality offenses going up against them. And the Celtics, after their 4 for 47 embarrassment in that loss to the Clippers, that is the worst three-point shooting performance in franchise history. They're solid, scoring 112 points per game with a 114 offensive rating, shooting 35% from deep and hitting nearly 11 threes per game over their last 3. Stunned the Suns on New Year's Eve day with a win there. And so you got to play well to beat them. And now they just got Jason Tatum back for 1 game so far, which is a loss to the Spurs. But I think that's why we're getting so much value here, is because they didn't manage to beat the Spurs in a close one last night. But if you want to read stock into that, the Spurs have beaten the Celtics in 18 of the last 21 meetings. You want to talk about a team that knows how to shut you down. With Tatum active, their offensive rating and defensive rating rises. And most importantly, I think in this matchup, their three-point shooting jumps 6 points to 34%. The Knicks, as I mentioned, struggling even against that poor competition. They're allowing the 3rd highest percentage of points off threes recently, and opponents are shooting 35% from deep at MSG. Celtics in their last 4 trips to MSG scoring 119.5. That's, juked by a double overtime game to start the season, but they've been hitting 16 triples over that 4-game sample size and shooting a clean 35%. So long story short, both these teams limit paint points, limit 2-pointers, are tough to beat inside. But if it's going to turn into a shooting gallery, I would certainly favor the Celtics now that we got Schroeder back, got Al Horford back, Jaylen Brown relatively healthy, and Tatum has 1 game under his belt to maybe shoot better than the 6 for 20 he went last night. And with the best player out there on the perimeter, I think the Celtics will be able to win this game.
Yeah, it seems like it. I would follow you on the Celtics winning on this one. I mean, some of the stats this season, especially for both teams, are pretty telling. The Knicks at home, when they are home dogs, 0-4 against the spread this season. When the Celtics are away favorites, they are 5-2 against the spread this season. Both the worst and best mark for each of those teams in terms of against the spread numbers. So yeah, the Knicks at home this season. I don't know. I was listening to a podcast, people talking about some of the stuff going on around the league this year with teams like the Knicks being good last year, the Hawks being good last year, and now teams coming to play against them this year. And I think that's a pretty good point, especially at MSG. And those numbers are telling, those home numbers being as bad as they are for the Knicks, especially if they are even favored at home. Teams are coming with a vengeance against them. And in this one, it's more of a two teams that are actually pretty similar in a lot of ways, as we mentioned at the top, underachieving and the like. But I think in this one, you follow the numbers at least that say, the Celtics should win this game. I think all the numbers that you provided relevant to, what they do against the Spurs, why this line is so low when you consider who's not playing for the Knicks, I think that's where you get into a lot of trouble. And this is where, look, we like Julius Randle a bit in this game because of his recent numbers against the Celtics. But one thing I'd like to know too is Julius Randle's numbers when he's got to be the primary ball handler, that doesn't feel right. And without another primary ball handler, Emmanuel Quickley, IQ, who, as a Knicks fan, I do love him in a ton of different ways, but he's not the point guard. And he's not even close to the point guard that you need to control the tempo of a game, control the offense, and set up other people for good shots. And that's what Jay Randle really does need. This entire Knicks offense needs a ball handler at the top of the key who's either running pick and rolls and dishing off of that to either the rim runner or to wing guys like Alec Burks, et cetera. But, without Derrick Rose, without Kemba Walker, there's nobody that can just control the tempo of that game the way that they need to. And that's why you see the Knicks at the very bottom of the league in offensive rating over their last 6. You see them back at the top of that defensive rating. But once again, got to look at why that is. And then, you look at their last 6-ish games or so where they, rattled off some wins, rattled off a ton of unders as well. But, we're talking about playing bad teams like the Thunder, the Pistons, the Timberwolves, and I'm going to make the Hawks a bad team right now as well, especially on the road. So, I think the signs that have been pointing upward for the Knicks are a little bit of a mirage. And the sign for the Celtics is they're really what they are. And what that is in this game to me is I think they will also keep this game low scoring. The Knicks aren't going to be able to score, so it doesn't really matter. If that team total for the Knicks, you might even consider the under on that one if you're a little bit scared that the Celtics could score a bit tonight, and get it over 208, which is not very much. Their team total at about 105.5. It feels like they should be able to get to that, but just as more likely to me is the under in general, just because I don't trust the Knicks to be able to score when they do play a good defense. Even when they did play teams that like to slow it down and might not be as good at defense. The Thunder are very good at defense right now, but T-Wolves, Pistons, and Hawks have proven to be horrible, and they still failed to score more than 101 points in any of those games, scoring in the 90s in a couple of them. So I still feel like Knicks getting under. If you see a total for 200 for a team like the Knicks, or I would throw the Mavs in there as well. Either of those teams, if you see a 200 total over that, I'm usually going to go under. They're not even reaching 190 to 200 points in these games, and I just don't trust the Knicks to score at all. So even before I took the Celtics team total over, I would just hit that Knicks team total under at about 104 and a half, and assume that they're going to continue to not be able to get that. They haven't even scored that many points in like 5 of their last 6. So why would they do that against a good team, like a good defensive team like the Celtics?
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, they got to 107 in their last loss at Boston. They needed 29 from Kemba and 32 from Evan Fournier, a double revenge game to get to there. They shot 36% from 3 in that game. The Celtics didn't have Al Horford or Schroeder, and Horford is the anchor of their defense right now. So, it took all that for them to get there, and that's just barely over that team total. So, yeah, I would feel fine about that. Also, their pace drops 3 possessions per 100 without Kemba this year. They're actually 4-10 with a negative 5.5 net rating without Kemba. He is kind of the key to what they're able to do in terms of just keeping pace offensively. Strangely, still, their defensive rating is better with him. They're just a listless team to a degree right now. The Celtics have been inconsistent, quite frustrating, but every time they're doubted, that seems to fuel them. I mean, I kind of honed in on this with the Mavericks last night against the Warriors and covering when they're underdogs, failing to cover when they're favorites. The Celtics have covered in 4 straight when they're underdogs too. And they've covered in 4 of 6 on back-to-backs this season. They've won 5 of 7 straight up, so it's not even a spread really that they have to worry about. The over has been hitting on those back-to-backs, but I'm not trusting the Knicks offense to do anything here. So I agree with you. If it drops down to like 204, then I'm considering a teaser where you can get the Celtics or use another game here to get that total even lower. I do think that we'll get over 200 points here just because guys like Fournier and Randall, they come to play in this rivalry. And because I expect the Celtics to get it going on offense now that they finally have their whole starting lineup back here. The only guy who should be out is Peyton Pritchard in protocol, and love is Charlie Hustle, but he ain't doing much to spark an offense. He is not running a team as an NBA point guard at this juncture. So I just like the Celtics here. I'm not going to confuse it with too much other picks here. At just -1, I think you can take Boston here.
Yeah, no, I honestly feel just as comfortable at -1 Boston as I do under 208, to be honest. If you wanted to tease that up, like you said, I would tease it up with another game. I don't see the point in getting a few more points from the Celtics when they're already basically at a pick 'em in this one. So, either if you want to buy some points for that total, whatever, but the under is where I feel, like I said, just as comfortable as the C's, or maybe even a little bit more comfortable. But those are the two places we're looking in this one. Not much to choose from tonight, but this is what we're making a shit sandwich out of some shit we're giving here from the NBA on a week Thursday night. And that is all the time we have for this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to the page. You can check out those other couple videos we have for you today, including the player props. 8-5, up about 2 units so far this season on 3 days of 2022 picking games in those player props. So we'll look to continue that trend. And until we see you next, happy betting.